So I have to make sure to stand as far back as possible so you can actually get my whole shirt today. One of my very dear friends bought me this shirt, saw it, thought of me, and it's completely perfect because pontoon, pontoon captain, like a real captain, only more drunker. That was so fitting and perfect. And so as soon as she brought it over, I'm like, I'm of course wearing that for a video and talking about it because that's awesome. Also has nothing to do with the pour or anything, but when does it ever? Right here. I tell you all about that stuff later. I'm going to tell you all about all that stuff, in just a minute. But before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You're at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things, and you are here for day 25 of 365 days of soap, year 2, and today we are doing another recipe day, and I'm giving you a second big bubble recipe blend thing. Yes. Now the reason for that is twofold. One, it was a custom request, and the client actually had a couple extra specifications that she wanted in a big bubble blend. So we're going to do that and talk about those extra things, why we put them in, and show you that too, in the recipe. And two, she didn't want anything made out of like a coffee or a beer or a wine or something that would really like up the lather just kind of, naturally. So we're doing it a different way. So if you don't have beer or wine or, coffee or whatever, you can do it this way. So the recipe does change a little bit from the last time we did this. And, there's all that jazz. So we should actually get to all of that jazz, now. We can talk about all the cool things we did for this one. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, we gave you a big bubble blend, and we are doing another one today because this is a custom order for a Sudser. She contacted me and wanted a big bubble blend, but she also wanted it to be a little extra more bubbly without putting anything like coffee or beer or wine in it. And also she wanted a really, really rock hard bar. So I am doing a new recipe for the peoples so you guys can see, another way to do a big bubble blend without additives like, again, coffees or beers or wines or all that jazz. And I love how when I get oil on the paper, it totally, can't write on it anymore. Love that. So the olive oil there is at 15%. Now, this particular recipe I'm giving to you in percentages, so you can calculate your oil and lye needs, or your water and lye needs, and your oil needs to that, depending on the size batch you want to make. I am super fatting this at 5%, and I did not write down my particular lye for this, so the lye that I put into this is 5.51 ounces of lye, and 12.32 ounces of water. Now to the water, I am adding sodium lactate at 1 teaspoon per pound of oil, as well as powdered sugar, also at 1 teaspoon per pound of oil. So for my particular recipe, I'm adding about a tablespoon of each of them to the cooled lye water. Now the reason that I'm adding the sugar to the cooled lye water is just because no scorchy. It doesn't really I don't tend to care if the lye water scorches. The actual reason why I'm adding it to the cooled lye water is because the lye water is already cool at this stage in this game. But If you don't like the scorchy, then like totally add it to the cold water and just make sure it's really well dissolved before incorporating it into your soap. Now, with this customer, she wanted a very fresh, clean scent. And you remember that first test I did for the multi-divider tool thingy, right? That acrylic pourer thing, and how thick the soap batter got and how it accelerated, like the scent accelerated. That scent blend from Sierra Candles was actually really good and very clean and bright. And the client also wanted a 3-color like drop swirl. And I'm thinking, cool. You actually need a slightly thicker batter to do a drop swirl. But also this is giving me another opportunity to like test the scent itself and see if it was the scent that got wonky or me. You know, because sometimes it can be me. And so I like to double check and make sure that everything's, you know, fine. So that's what we are using for the scent blend. Now, we are also putting kaolin clay into this batch because I put clay into all of my batches of soap, and it also does help with the lather as well as the bar hardening. So, love that. For this particular soap, I am pouring out a portion of the oils to disperse my micas in. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I do not. Sometimes I just use a little bit of extra oil, and so the soap is therefore a little bit extra of a little bit more super fat. So there's that. For this one, I kept the water ratios kind of down at like 2.4 times the lye, essentially. And I didn't want to put too many extra free oils in all of this. So I made sure to just measure off from the actual soap oils themselves. Yes. So yes, we are playing with this wood sage and sea salt one again, just to see, because maybe maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I messed something up. That does happen. So I always give myself another test before I fully determine that, you know, it is or is not something else. Now with this, I kind of ran out of the little sample they gave me, so I had to put a little bit of something extra in it. And that particular something extra is for another soap that we'll do, and we're doing, and I'll talk about when we get there. But it was a very slow moving fragrance oil for sure. It was great. So I loved that. So if anything, that little teeny tiny, because I put, I think maybe 1/4 of an ounce in to get to the total amount that I needed. If anything, that little teeny tiny amount of, you know, the other fragrance oil helped extend this and maybe counteracted the sugar that's in the lye water. Sugar can accelerate your batter too. It can happen. I don't find that it super does, but it can. So, and with oils like this is going to be sort of a thicker batter of or batch of soap anyway, just because of the high quantities of the hard oils in it. Now, I usually do disperse my clays in my in water right before I pour in, so it doesn't make it hard to, so that the clays don't start settling at the bottom, essentially. But you can go either way. Just, you know, make sure that you give it a stir before you put it into your soap batter, and then just give it another mixy mix and make sure it's all well incorporated. And yeah, we are ready to go on to the coloring of the portions. Again, we are doing a drop swirl for this, and she wanted green and purple, and so I'm doing a 3-color drop swirl, green, purple, and white, and then the rest of the bar is white per the client's request. So, you know, when they want that, we do that. Yes. Now, I am concerned about scenting the drops, because if the batter itself, like the main portion of the batter, gets really thick, like with that multi-acrylic pour tool thing, that's okay. That can be just fine. But I'm very concerned that the green and the purple is going to go too thick, too wonky, and like, you know, do that separation and all that weirdness. And so I don't know. We'll see how it works. I will be putting less scent than you reasonably could into the three, accent color portions, the three little beakers there, and, try to manage it that way. So that's what we're going to do with all that. And that totally makes sense to, me. So I don't know. Now everything is still reasonably fluid with this, and we are ready to go on to the actual drop, swirl, pour portion of this. So yeah, let's go check that out. Okay, and onto this pour. Now, I'm going to scent everything right before I start using it. So, cool. Now, the bulk of the soap batter is going to go into, maybe half of the base is going to go into the mold. And then I'm going to start my drop swirly swirls with all of that. And that's, cool. We're not really exactly here for the actual, technique as much as the point of this bubble blend. Now, what's the difference? The biggest difference between it's already starting to separate. Okay. So the biggest difference between this recipe and the last one I gave you is, well, the insertion of canola. And that's actually really because I didn't have enough olive oil. And so there was that. And so I subbed out some of the olive oil for canola, which you can totally do as far as what those two things do in soap. Very, very similar. So that's cool. But then, like, the big kicker is going to be, again, since I'm not using a coffee or a beer or a wine, is going to be the inclusion of the sugar to really ensure that that lather is really big and bubbly. Now, you can do it that way. Sugar is a very easy substitution. Oh yeah, see how grainy and gross it's getting. Yep, that is the scent, my friends, for sure. Now, sugar's a really easy thing to incorporate into your lye solution to increase your bubbliness, for sure. If you don't want to do that, you can also consider upping the amount of castor oil, and so the lather gets more sustained, and therefore that's another way to sort of make it appear more bubbly. Make sense? Sure. And then the sodium lactate is going to be for the bar hardening. The cool thing about sodium lactate, in my experience, is it actually does extend trace, so it gives you a longer work time while also making your bar harder in the final, finished product after saponification, which is cool. I'm definitely here for that. And yeah, this is all clumping like crazy. Now, with a drop swirl, this can be completely fine. Like, I'm not actually worried about this. I'm going to have some little droppy drops in there. So that's cool. In order to make sure that it's sort of dropping down instead of spreading apart, though, you can raise or lower your beaker, your pour container, as you would like. And that's awesome too. Now, just for the rest of this, I'm just going to scrape it all onto the top and give it a little design on the top. So we use all of that amazing soap batter, in the actual soap, so my customer doesn't get shortchanged and all of her bars are of the appropriate weight. So, that's awesome. And yeah, there's not really a lot to the rest of this process. It's going to be just sculpting the top and doing the things. This will get put into the oven for C-pop and gel, and the client will then be picking this up and it will continue its cure with her, which is, good because it clears up space on my shelves, really. So I love that. But yeah, this particular recipe, easy to source oils, and if you don't have sodium lactate for bar hardening, you can consider cutting down that water more, and that yields a harder bar faster, really. But, I think most everybody has sugar, right? That's a thing. I guess people who don't eat sugar don't have sugar. So I guess that's not a thing. So, don't do that and put some beer or wine in instead, because that works too. Or coffee. Coffee's great. Okay, now on to the cut of this. As I said, this was C-popped and gelled, and we had a little bit of cracking there, got a little bit overheated, but that's fine. It's cool, cool, cool. Sometimes that can happen when you have sugars in your batch, for sure. Now, I don't have the footage. I will find it. It exists somewhere for the lather test, and I'll probably throw it in like the next video as soon as I find it. Like, oh yeah, by the way, here was the lather test for this. But we did do a lather test on this, and it was delightful. A nice big bubble, which is cool. And for the bar hardening, again, that sodium lactate, it's awesome. We do have some seepage coming from the scent, though. I did go ahead and hold on to these. The plan was to give them to the client right away. I did go ahead and hold on to these for a couple weeks just to monitor that seepage and see what was going on and give it some testy tests to make sure that everything was safe. And it was. But again, this particular scent smells delightful, but kind of problematic in soap. I bet it would be delightful in melt and pour for sure. Great in bath bombs, you bet. But it's definitely seeping. So there is that. But there is another way to do a big lather soap, and that is a day 25, a custom big lather blend. Okay, so we definitely got confirmation that that one scent blend from Sierra Candles that they sent as like a tester, yeah, that definitely accelerates and has some very real problems. But that's okay. I didn't pick that one out. They sent it through and it's completely fine. So I'm not judging them on that one. And I also, you know, I didn't look it up. I didn't do anything with it outside of just, okay, cool, let's use this. You knew I was doing this test and you sent this through, and so I'll try this one too. Smells great. It's such a delightful smell. It just definitely does accelerate, and it's separate. You have some problems for sure. And the recipe itself, though, it's different than the big bubble that we did, you know, last week or the week before, in that the ratios did change with the oils as well as the lye solution. The water was a little bit different, and the addition of the sodium lactate and the powdered sugar. Sodium lactate for the bar hardening, for sure. She wanted a rock hard bar of soap, which you're usually going to get if you're doing a clay soap A and working with so many hard oils too. But you know, you want it harder? We'll make it harder for you. So we did some sodium lactate. The sugar is going to be a great substitute for your beers and your wines. Absolutely, if you want to really increase that lather. So there's that. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Go try it. Go do your thing. I gave it to you in percentages this time. Go plug it into Soap Calc so you can see, you know, how much you're going to need based on the size of batch that you're making. And that'd be cool. Yes. And then let me know in the comments what you thought of it. For sure. If you are interested in more recipes and testing and back to basics and deep dives into oils and soaping techniques and all the things, subscribe to the channel. That would be amazing. For those of you who have subscribed to the channel, hey, you liking the new format? We're almost like a full 4 weeks in, so we're really kind of getting into the groove now, right? And is that a good structure? Is that working? Let me know, Sudsers. That would be great. For those of you who aren't subscribed, you're not my Sudsers, so you know, whatever. Subscribe and then tell me. Yes, I really do appreciate all my Sudsers each and every day for joining me and hanging out and doing all the things for sure. Thank you so much for joining me for another round of 365 days of soap. I'm out of here, but I will see you guys all again tomorrow for another round of soapy fun. Bye.